Springtime is here. I mean, we still get the occasional blizzard and snowstorm, but temperatures are warming up very quickly. That means that water is not frozen anymore. That means that being outside for long periods of time is not painful anymore. It also means that days are longer and brighter. It is time to dust off those ND filters. I've talked about long exposures in this channel before, and I show you some of the ND filters that I have, but that collection has grown a little bit in the last few years. So in this video, I'm going to show you the ND filters that I have, why I have them, how to choose a good one, cheaper alternatives to ND filters, and more. You've heard it before. ND filters are like sunglasses for your camera, and that's exactly what they are. You might have noticed that the pupil in your eye gets really tiny when it's bright, but it opens up at night to absorb as much light as possible so you can see better. Lenses work pretty much the same way. We can close or open the aperture to let more or less light in. And there is really nothing else besides aperture to control how much light reaches the sensor. We can change the sensitivity of the sensor, we can change the shutter speed or how long we're going to be capturing the image, but we cannot change the intensity of the light. Aperture is the only way we have, but because aperture has other consequences on our images, like it changes the depth of field, we are not free to use any aperture value. We need another tool for this, and this is where ND filters come in to the rescue. ND filter stands for neutral density filter because in theory they block all the spectrum of light the same way, at least the good ND filters do. This is a 6-stop ND filter that lives pretty much all the time on this lens. This is my Samyang 35mm 1.4. That 1.4 wide aperture is the only reason why I bought this lens and the only reason why I carry it with me, because as you can see, it's big, it's heavy, and it's more expensive than lenses that are not as fast as this one. But on bright days, and now in the spring we're getting more and more of those, it gets really hard to shoot wide open at 1.4 in the middle of the day because there is just too much light. So that's why I have this filter. It's a 6-stop ND filter. When I say 6-stop ND filter, that means that it lowers the intensity of light by 6 stops. And that's a lot. That's the difference between shooting at f1.4 and f11. Without this filter, I would have to shoot at f11 to not expose the image. But with this filter, I'm able to shoot at f1.4 and I still get the right exposure. As I said, a good ND filter blocks all the spectrum of light by 6 stops in this case. Cheaper ND filters might block blues a little bit more, might block greens, reds, whatever. So the effect is that they create color cast in your images. In my case, that is not a big deal because I shoot in black and white, but if you shoot color, that's something that you should be aware of. This specific ND filter is from the brand Gobi or Gobi. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm not sponsored by them or affiliated with them in any case, but I just happen to like their ND filters, and I like these ones and I think they are pretty good for the price. As I said, a little bit of color cast is not a huge deal for me, and that's why when I got started with long exposures, I started out with welding glass instead of real ND filters. Welding glass is the glass that, well, welders use when they are welding, so to protect their eyes, and it can be used in front of the lens as well. They do have a very strong color cast, but the advantage is that they are very cheap. You can find them at almost any hardware store for $5, $6, $7. The problem with welding glass is how to attach it to the front of your lens and how to make it stable enough that it stays in place for the duration of your long exposure. I used to use rubber bands with my Bronica. I also glued a step-up ring onto the glass. Both of those solutions work perfectly fine, and it's a very viable, cheap solution if you shoot in black and white because of the color cast. After a few months of using welding glass, I made the decision of investing some money on good ND filters because I loved the long exposures and I still do. They are a big part of my photography. I also wanted to preserve the color as much as I could, even though I shoot in black and white, because I like to play with those colors in post, as I said many times. And also because the DIY solutions to hold the glass in front of the lens were not were far from perfect, let's say it that way. So one by one, I started to buy better ND filters. I decided to go with the Lee filters. These filters are square and they are 100 millimeters. I think that's what they are, 100 millimeter long. They fit every lens that I've ever owned. I don't have a lens, and that includes the Bronica, where I cannot use this ND filter. So the way this filter attaches to the lens is by using first an adapter ring that screws in the lens, and then this holder that you can see here. So you put the ND filter here in the holder, and this attaches to the lens. The advantage of using an ND filter system with a holder versus a screwing ND filter like this one is that I can remove it from the front of my lens really quick and put it back so I can check my composition. These are very strong ND filters. This one right here is a 15 stop ND filter. As you can imagine, when you have an ND filter like this in front of your lens, well, you can't really see anything. It's very, very dark. So having a holder like this mechanism makes it very, very easy if you need to do things like recompose or check your focus or something, because you can just detach the ND filter very quick and put it back on in just a matter of seconds. While with the other one, you will have to unscrew it, screw it again, and when you are doing that, you might move the lens, you might move the camera, the tripod or something. So this is much more convenient when you are taking long exposures than the screw-in filters. So as I said, I have a whole system of Lee filters that is called the Super Stopper. It's 15 stops. I have the big stopper, this is 10 stops, and I have the little stopper, this is 6 stops. You can combine them too. The holder has room for 2 of them, so I could get, for example, 25 stops if I wanted to go really, really crazy, but I rarely do that. I use just one at a time. They come with these boxes, which are pretty handy and convenient for storage in your camera bag. As you can see, this one is a little bit smashed, but it took the beating instead of the filter, so that's great. They are a little bit expensive. I think they are $125 each, plus the holder, plus the adapter, but they will most likely outlive your camera. I've been using these filters for 4 years now, and I use them with the Bronica, with my A6500, and with my A7Rii now. Okay, what else? Oh, well, any of these filters are just too big to use with my point and shoot cameras, so I have another set for these cameras, and it's also from Gobi, but this is really tiny and really cute, as you can see. This is very cool. I don't know if other brands do this, but basically they are 3 ND filters and they all screw into each other, and then it comes with 2 caps, I guess, for each side, on top of and the bottom, that protect the ND filters here. So they are very easy to store. I love these because I can just throw it in my backpack, and I always have a whole ND filter system here with me for my point and shoot cameras. So I have a 3-stop ND filter that lives permanently on my RX100 Mark VII, as you can see there. That's for video. I use this camera a lot for video. And the other 2 that I have here, these are more for long exposures because they are too strong, too dark for these tiny cameras. Otherwise, it's a 6-stop and a 10-stop. And like the other ND filters, you could stack them up, actually use them like they are right now. The 6-stop screwed into the 10-stop, so you could get 16 stops right here in this tiny, tiny package. Okay, another thing that I wanted to mention, this one's a little bit dirty, but for years I used a variable ND filter for video. That means that it's the amount of light that it blocks is not fixed. You can adjust it. This one, I think it goes from 1 or 2 stops to 4 or 5 in theory, because in practice, when you go beyond 3 stops, it looks horrible and it creates a lot of artifacts. So yeah, it's more like between 1 and 3 stops, which is cool because for video it could be very useful depending on the light. The light changes all the time outdoors, as you know. So this one you could adjust and adapt to that light very, very easily. I used this one for years until I finally broke it on my last road trip. I think it was in Arches that I dropped my camera. And that's why I decided to go this time with a fixed ND filter instead of a variable ND filter, because I feel like these are, even though this one lasted for like 3 or 4 years, I feel like they are a little bit weaker, a little bit more fragile, because they have more, well, they have moving parts and they have two pieces of glass instead of one. Quality is a little bit worse than the fixed ND filter. So that's why I decided to go with a fixed one this time, even though these are very useful for video. And this is all I had to say about ND filters. I think I might have forgotten something. So if you have any questions, please leave a comment down below. I hope the video was useful. Thank you so much for watching again, and see you in the next one.